And we pretty much made it because that's like a second episode in a row.
Well, between me and you, yes.
No,
But between me and you and YouTube, no.
because
Because you gotta post though.
No, because there is lag time. You know, like you do something and then it's lag time and then it becomes reality.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. All right. So, what are we gonna tell them about today?
I'm super excited because we're gonna talk about fear.
Fear.
And what better time to talk about fear than close
afraid.
to Halloween, huh?
Oh, that's a good twist. We should have had your pumpkins here. We should bring a pumpkin. So, do you want to tell them what is up on the screen or not yet?
Not yet.
It's fancy.
No,
Look.
but you gotta stay tuned. So
Look, I
when
wanna show you what I can do. I can put it what you guys see on the screen. Boom. Ooh, what? No way. Yes, and then we can come back right here. That's super cool. Come on. So, all right. Tell us. Let's start. What made you decide that you chose this subject?
Oh, because it was me. First of all, I really feel like fear.
I lost something.
Yes, you did. What are you grabbing?
Ooh, subscribe. Yes, okay.
Okay. So I feel like fear is really important because it dictates. Whoa, can't say the word. Whether you're gonna make a
Has a
choice
crucial
or
part
not.
to it. Be careful. Okay.
And so I think it's really important to understand fear, understand how to utilize fear, how to really hear if you're doing something because you're afraid or because you feel like it's not a good idea, and so on and so forth. So I'm super excited. I know that I have to deal with fear on a daily basis, and probably most people do. So
Yeah, everybody does.
I don't want it to prevent somebody to live their life. I want fear to help us to live life even more. So yeah, I'm excited.
I am too, as long as this stops playing around. So, all right. Let's start. What is the structure? How do you start talking about it?
So we'll talk about what is fear. How is fear defined by like neuroscientists and what the debate is right now? Like what makes a person scared? Like what makes me afraid of dogs and you love dogs? What makes me be afraid of
Who
heights?
doesn't love dogs?
Or you being so comfortable in heights, you know? So it's a debate, like what makes a person afraid of something. Of course, they say that some things are innate, like you are born with a certain fear. But then there's the conditioning part, that we're conditioned to fear certain things. So
Okay.
I don't know if you want to read a couple from here.
Forget about it. What does fear mean to you?
What fear means to me? Wow, that's a twist. Fear means that you're being threatened, something that's putting a threat to your comfort, your homeostasis. Like something is altering that and you're scared. And
That's the main definition. For me, fear is that, but something that really requires your attention. Something that in the moment or in your head, it's really like it's like somebody scratching. You know, it's like something that's unfamiliar, something that you're not acquainted with, something that you don't know what can happen, or the expectation of, like, even your expectation of something makes you afraid. You know, it doesn't necessarily have to be the situation itself. Even expecting something to happen and it never happens, it can have, I guess, the same response in your brain. But that's what fear is, like the expectation of something happening or something. Like it's in your head mostly, you know, because there is no physical thing such as fear. I mean, it has a physical response, but it starts from up here, right?
right.
Okay, so let's start.
I mean, so do you want to go straight to the book now?
Yeah.
So we definitely looked up like fear and try to understand it more throughout this week. and we started reading Mastering Fear. Do you want to pull up the author? Because I don't have it written down.
The author of what?
Mastering Fear. Because
Now that's out of context and we'll have to show a lot of things.
But we got to give the author credit, so...
It's okay, I will figure it out. Hold on. So...
Mastering Fear. And this was a really good book. We'll put it in the description along with every other...
So this guy is a big deal. Sorry, it's Brandon Webb. And John David Mann as well. Mastering Fear. He has a podcast too. He's a cool guy. I like this guy a lot. So yeah, it's Mastering Fear. It's Brandon Webb and John David Mann. That's the two people. All right.
So yeah, it's a great book. You start. What did you think? Since you really liked the guys, so I didn't even know who they were before this. So
I didn't either, but
okay.
they've been doing like popular podcasts. I think the guy says he has a multi-million-dollar business, like $150 million or something. So, well, I'm very skeptical when it comes to suggestions. So that was a good one that you suggested to me, and I love it. Now, what did I think of the book? That is a great book. It's a short read, and I like the way that he approaches it, because most authors do nowadays, they just tell you things that you kind of want to hear, and they don't go too deep. Not that this guy really does go deep, but he tells stories about his life, and it's kind of motivational, other than talking about fear. So a big thing, I don't know if you have any takeaways in your list, but a big one for me is when he says what you choose that the fear means, and how you use it. It's everything, because you might be afraid and never do it, or use this fear to kind of propel you forward, So that's a part that I really liked about the book. And he said, I have so many, let me see what else. So for example, he says an example, that's one of my favorite examples about the monkey, where, and you should get the book, okay? So that don't only hear us. Mastering Fear, maybe we can put a link down there. Financial tip, by the way, if you have an American Express card, they will pay for your Audible subscription for free. So that's great. So anyway, if you get the Audible, you're going to listen to this. He says about that monkey example, and tell them, what does the example say? Do you remember?
I don't. That wasn't a highlight for me. That's why it's so good that I had you read it, because you took some things out of the book that I didn't, and I probably took some things that meant a lot to me that didn't mean so much.
Come on, that's a good story. So he says how they catch monkeys in countries.
The coconut.
Yeah,
I do remember.
How they catch monkeys in countries that's, I guess, allowed to have pets as monkeys, which is so interesting. But he says they put a coconut, I think, under the ground or in a cage, I don't know. And the monkey loves the coconut, so she goes to grab the coconut. And then, she has the coconut, but the hole is not big enough for the coconut or the monkey's fist to get out. But if the monkey lets go of the coconut, then she can get her own hand out. But she's struggling to get that coconut out, and that's where they catch the monkey, because the monkey really doesn't want to let go of that coconut, and all she has to do to get free is just let go of the coconut. And he does a great analogy when he talks about this, saying that that's most people in real life, and he correlates it to their jobs. So it's just you really want to do something else, but you're trapped because you don't want to let the comfort of the coconut, you don't want to let it go, so you're free to do more things. And that's a beautiful analogy, and it's very, very true. And that's not what life is all about. And it's a big, big lesson. It makes you think in a bigger picture kind of context,
Yeah, definitely. I like that too. I don't know if it was around the same chapter and section, because he really breaks it down well, and he ties everything in so good. And of course, like Alex said, you should go read it. So we're not going to share absolutely everything, and nor do we have the time. Or probably could remember everything. But he talks about safety, and I'm just going to bring up that part that I like the most, because it kind of ties into the coconut, because we feel safe. This is It's providing everything that we need, and it's working for us. But that necessarily doesn't mean that you should stay there and there's not something bigger. And in that part, he was talking about a job that was financially paying well. It was a good job for him, but he wanted to start his own business after like having his first business that he opened up go bankrupt. And he wanted to start another one, which he ended up doing because he felt in his gut that that's exactly where he should have been. So he fought his fear, his comfort, and he knew in his heart, his gut, whatever, he mentions gut a lot, that he was supposed to start his business. So he did. And he says that don't ever fool yourself to make it seem like you're safe, because safety it's not always promised to you. Like, you can be like on the road driving
that's a
normally and something can happen to you, or you can be in an airplane taking a risk and something can happen to you. Safety is never guaranteed for anybody. So you have to put yourself out there, whether that's a transportation thing or just being vulnerable and putting yourself out there in other areas. You know, it's just...
Yeah, and he ties this down, like you just said, like, you might die right now. And, like, this has been said again and again and again, like, the concept of death, you know, but, like, if you really think about it, and you really, because in this day and age, we're so busy, it's just, oh, yeah, okay, one day I will die. But if you really think about it, and you're like, you die right now, when somebody tells you, hey, you know what, you have, like, 1 week to live. It's just so kind of liberating in a sense, but at the same time, like, it forces you to face the reality, you know, like, have you been doing what you want to do? You know, have you been focusing on the things that they matter to you? Have you been building relationships? Is anybody gonna show your funeral? These are like serious questions, you know.
Right.
And nobody like it's, if you do, somebody doesn't slap you with death and be like, hey, you gotta really focus on that because you'll die. Which it's surprising to me, because some people, they will be slapped with health issues and they will keep doing the same old. But anyway, if you really are in this situation where you'll die next week, it forces you to prioritize really, really fast. And this priority definitely is not gonna be to make $1 million. It's gonna be experiences. It's gonna be, so it's interesting how he says, like, about death. It's a huge one,
Right.
and our decisions would be very different if we thought of this more, you know.
Yeah, I like the part when he brings up, I guess the founder of Reddit said, just think of your life like as if if anybody played video games, or in particular Mortal Kombat, you know, like that there's a certain amount of lives you get before you're done. You're out.
That's true.
And so you have to think about it like there is 0 lives remaining. And so this is your one life that you get. And honestly, I liked how the author just talked about, you know, doing things that you're afraid of is living. It's not doing things that you're not doing things that you're afraid of is dying. And doing things that you are afraid of is really living, because you're just telling yourself, you know, I can conquer this. I can overcome this. And generally and usually what you do, like, towards the fear is worthwhile. Like, have you ever done something that you were so afraid of and there was just an extravagant prize on the other side? Because usually fear wants to keep you from something too, when you know that something better is on the other side. So I like the author also saying, don't make fear your opponent, make it your ally. Use it so that way you can really live. And I feel like he just did a really good job with explaining that, because it's really the way you interpret fear that's going to make you either want to overcome it or use it the right way.
I remember, I don't remember if this is advice people give to people that they're really afraid to do something, and they say they don't feel afraid or anxious, they feel excited. Because pretty much the responses are the same as your interpretation of that sweaty palms, heart. What does this mean to you? It is like how you're gonna interpret it. So if you are about to do something big, just say I'm excited. That's a quick short tip. Don't say I'm afraid. Don't say like I'm scared. Say I'm excited. You know, now that you said this, here is the thing. There is a guy named Jim Rohn that he died a long time ago, and he made a big name for himself before even the internet was around, with seminars. So Jim Rohn here's listen to this. He was into self-improvement. He was the mentor of Tony Robbins, so he was a big deal. And he says, like, people are afraid of taking risks, but it's all risky. Like, it all is risky. Even if you choose to take the safest path in life, it's all risky. You might lose your job. 2008 might happen, and like sizing down might happen to companies. So it's all risky. The question is, are you doing what you want to do? It's like, what is your best alternative? Sit in a corner and people bring you food every day? You might live to be 100, he says. But what kind of life is that? Being in a corner and never getting out of the house?
Right, exactly.
You know? So it's all risky. The question is, at the end of your life, you're going to look back and you're going to see, like, you don't want to have regret, and you really don't want to do other things that other people want for you.
Yeah.
You have to do what you want to do.
Definitely.
Okay, so let's keep it going. What else?
So let's just get into the 5 things he mainly talks about to get through fear. You want to say number 1?
No, I don't think I have this written down, but what I want to say, what I want to say before that, and I was telling you the other day, and I'll say it really quick. I was watching this documentary on Netflix about Formula One. It's called Drive to Survive, okay? And Formula One is a very competitive, very expensive, and very fancy sport. It's not as big in the US, although there is a new team in the US, Haas, that they compete. It's 20 teams all over the world. Each team has 2 drivers. So there is 20 drivers in the entire world that they can get a set. 20, like, you can imagine how competitive that is. 20 drivers. So there is this thing that there is a certain driver, I remember now, I forgot his name, but he used to drive for Haas, anyway, an American team. So they lose their confidence and they get into this funk, and they're so afraid to just let it flow and drive that they don't want to make a mistake, and this is when they keep making more and more mistakes. There is a certain part where he keeps looking and looking at analyzing his driving over the letters and whatever they hand him and the screens and all this fancy stuff, and the coach tells that he gets into a funk, and he, instead of trying to see, like, he has to just drive. And sometimes that you have to do. Just do it. Just drive. Just dip your feet in and get in and figure it out. But, like, we can get so paralyzed by this. Everybody can relate. It's not even funny.
Yeah.
You know, like, he crashes into the wall out of nowhere. It's unreal.
And that's why I love, that is unreal. And that's why I really love how the author says, you know, don't let fear paralyze you, but use it. That's why get comfortable with being fearful, because he says that fear never really goes away. Like, it's how you use the fear when you feel it that you're actually going to be able to master it. And that's why the book is called Mastering, not overcoming, not fighting fear. It's called Mastering, because it's inevitable. You're going to be scared and shaking, and you're going to have a physiological response that maybe you don't even know how to explain. Maybe it was passed down through generation and generation as like fear of heights or something like this. But
that's a good
it's what you do with that fear and how you don't let it overtake your body and, like you said, Alex, paralyze you.
It does. It's crazy.
You're going to let it propel you, like you mentioned earlier, Alex. So that way, okay, yeah, my palms are sweaty. Yeah, my heart is racing. But how am I going to use this feeling in my body right now to not paralyze me, but to propel me to move forward and keep doing what I want to do?
And, you know, like, really briefly again, because we have to keep going. But sometimes, like he says in the book as well, if you lived in an abusive house or in a confronting situation all the time, high intensity, high nerves, high, like, you know, argumentative environment, and you grew up around this, the person that 30 years after you are having an altercation with that has a difference of opinion has nothing to do with your issues. But yet you, in a subtle and very deep way, you take it out on them, although you just don't really care about the argument at the moment. But because it's so ingrained in you that, if there is a confrontation, you really have to win, or you really have to be aggressive, or you have to prove them that you're macho, or whatever. Like, there is a billion things that they're deeply engraved in our DNA, in a sense, and root of growing up, that we're not really aware about them. So here's another thing, like, if you pay attention to your habits and how you respond to stimuli of their environment, some of them are not even your ideas or your responses. It's something you've been taught and has been passed down to you by looking at your parents or like your role models.
Yeah.
So if you don't like that and you still do it, you have to face it. Like, hey man, that's not who I am. That's who my parents were. That's who my role models were. But that's not who I am, and I gotta change it and maybe be kind or just let them go.
Right.
So like that's a big one too.
Definitely.
All right. So let's give them the 5 steps.
So, first thing he says is to decide. Decision is a chapter, and what he says is to fully commit. And one big takeaway that I got, and you can share yours, was that I guess because he was in the Navy SEALs, and a lot of people had to do activities in order to pass tests to be able to fully be enlisted into that branch. And a lot of guys would just drop out before even taking a test because they were scared. They didn't want to be wrapped up, tied down, and put into water, or they had to make a huge jump that they were not prepared for. But what he said was he thought, they didn't really fully commit to being a part of that branch or fully enlisting into that branch, because when you fully decide with all your heart, this is where I belong, this is what I want to do, this is my future, you're not going to walk away that fast. You have to decide, okay, I'm not going to let any obstacle hold me back. Whatever I'm feeling, I may be scared crapless.
I love that so much.
But I'm still going to do it. So I really like that part.
Do you know, again, like, I'm going to refer to somebody else. There was this guy that died from steroids, huge bodybuilder, huge, like over 300 something pounds. Everybody was looking up to him, and his name was Rich Piana. Maybe you guys know him. Not too educated, but a smart guy, and took some big risks. So his motto about being the biggest guy in the room was he's gonna do whatever it takes. He's like, people say, I'll do this and that, and the right answer is not you have to do 10,000 sit-ups. I'll do whatever it takes. And this is the right mindset. Whatever it takes. You want to be successful. You don't like limit yourself, I'll do it for a month. I'll do it for as long as I have to, and I'll do whatever I have to do. I'll do whatever it takes. This is the mindset to go through that kind of training that's brutal, like Hell Week and stuff they go through. It's unreal. Whatever it takes. Yeah. That's the motto. So?
Is that all you have to say about that chapter?
So you said about deciding?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Everything starts like that. Decision. It's like, I hear it again and again, but decision is not the same as wanting something. If you decide and commit, that's what you just said.
Right.
And like truly decide, this is what it is, this is how it is, this is how it's going to be. It's very different than I want this to happen.
Right.
It like, you can see it in people's eyes. You can see it in people's talking about it.
Absolutely.
So it's commitment and decision that they make this forward. And it's the first step, no more. I'm not going to be with this abusive guy anymore. I'm not going to be working for pennies on the dollar anymore. And when you draw this line and you say no more and you commit, then you'll figure it out. But if you half-ass it, it's not going to happen.
So decide.
Number
and
commit.
2.
And commit.
And commit. And he says a bunch of different tips too to back decision. Again, get the book.
Do you not read this now?
We're almost done. I'll get through the 5 and then you can. Number 2 is rehearsal. Master it first one of the tips, because again, he goes through various of tips to support the overall topic, which rehearsal. I like the part where he says, master it in your mind first. You know, like if you have, an example he put in the book, if you are scared of public speaking, like master it in your head first. Like tell yourself, you know, try to feel exactly how it will be when you're doing it in person. So that way you're retraining your thoughts, you're learning how to again get used to that physiological response of being afraid, and you're mastering it in your head first before you actually start, you know, practicing whatever it is you're trying to overcome, or at least deal with for fear, because I don't like the overcome thing either.
Yeah.
But yeah. And then do you have something to say about that?
But everything around you is you know, Einstein used to say, imagination is the life of coming attractions, you know, and everything around you is somebody imagined it, thought of it, you know, like this is true for fear or anything else, but you have to have a blueprint mentally first to be ready for the situation.
Yeah.
You know, like you don't just pray, you show up and like you have to be mentally prepared and like think it through.
Right.
You know, who thought of hotels? Like we said this on a podcast a long time ago. Airplanes, hotels, cars. It's products of imagination. It's amazing.
Yeah. So what he said too was to he actually spoke down on the quote, you know, getting out of your comfort zone, which we did, which, you know, I have my thoughts about that. But he said, instead of just jumping out of your comfort zone, slowly stretch out of your comfort zone.
Yeah. And this comes, it's being tied by the fact that he says, and that's the part that I agree. He says there is a right way to learn something and then a wrong way to learn something, and he brings up an example about a guitar and like learning how to play bass. He says you can learn how to play a song very slowly and then try to challenge yourself, and this is where it comes, the part where you have to challenge yourself and get out of your comfort zone. As long as you know how to play it slower, now you have to challenge yourself to try to play it faster.
Yeah.
Or he says you can try and like chop it thick and you know, like try to learn it as fast as you can and try to make mistakes, and then hope the next time you play it, you make less mistakes and less mistakes.
That was good.
And so this is where it ties down, like, because in both cases you can get out of your comfort zone because you don't know the song. The question is, you have to apply it aptly. You have to apply it in the right way.
Yeah.
So the right way to learn something and the wrong way to learn something. That would be a nice clip. We should put it as a clip on its own.
Maybe, yeah, that's true.
The editor of our team here.
Not really. I do minor things. So number 3 was letting.
You're major to my life.
Oh.
Okay.
Number 3 was letting go. So just understanding again, that safety thing. Safety is an illusion. I like how he says that.
Yeah.
Because again, going back to the risk that Alex was talking about, the safety that I already brought up. Also, very quickly, and then you can expand more on this chapter, but flipping the switch in your head, you know, whenever you're going to say something negative about the fear, you know, turn it around. He also mentioned, I don't know if it was in another chapter, but he said, speak whatever you're saying out loud, like even if it's negative, and then just turn it around. Like if you're saying something and I really want to try this, because I'm pretty sure that I would sound hella crazy if I say exactly what I'm thinking towards my fear.
Yeah, but
you're
gonna try to keep it to yourself.
But that's what he said. Yeah, say it out loud.
Yeah, that's true.
Keep it to yourself. Yeah. But saying it even out loud, I would probably scare myself. Like,
well, that's true. And
how crazy
and there is power in that.
Yes.
There is power into externalizing your inner thoughts.
Yeah.
Because we all have this internal monologue, and
exactly.
it's a make you or break you situation, you know,
right.
On how you perform, on how you feel, you know, and the outside stimuli has an input in that too. If you wake up in the morning and the 10 first people you see are all miserable, it might, if you're not a strong enough mentally person, change your outlook of the day. So yeah, it's that's a good one. If you, or even if you don't like really utter the words, if you think about what you say to yourself sometimes, it's a huge differentiating factor, you know. Like, what do you think, like, Michael Phelps, the swimmer, the number one swimmer, or Mike Tyson used to say to himself before the race? He was like, oh, I might win this race. Like, no, I'm gonna eat this guy alive. I'm gonna dominate. I'm gonna, you know. And that inner monologue, I guarantee you, plays a huge, like, factor.
Definitely.
I wanted to say something here, but keep going. And I want to say something very interesting about fear that I haven't shared with you either.
So number 4, jumping off. Asking for what you want. So 2 points from that is just, you know, taking off. And I kind of like put this tied together with like taking action, you know. He talks about, you know, asking questions, actually asking things that will get to what you want to accomplish.
Exactly.
And asking the right people too, he was mentioning, and have faith, you know, have faith in yourself, in your
that's a
gut,
good one,
in your resources.
So and that's what it is. Ooh. At some point I used to identify myself as an atheist, and here is the part now. When I heard faith, I used to be like, oh, now he's gonna bring up the God card, you know. And you changed me a lot, right? So now I love God. But the thing here is, I saw it on his face like, but faith, and what is faith for you and what is faith for me or for her? It's a very personalized thing. But there is no life without faith. You wouldn't drive a car if you didn't believe the car is gonna like respond the way you wanted. You wouldn't go out of your house if you didn't have faith. Faith doesn't necessarily mean religious faith, which is very empowering as well. But faith is faith in your ability to perform, faith in your teacher or whoever mentors you. Faith is not much more, but faith is believing that your knowledge and yourself can withstand no matter what, right?
Right.
So that's my take into faith.
Okay.
So I used to be closed off. So if you hear faith, if you don't have religious aspirations, don't be closed off. Faith is believing in yourself, whatever you want to make it as. Faith is something that you have to have, right?
Definitely. Well, I believe in God, so.
Me too. But I'm telling you, there's been a dark time that I haven't.
Definitely. Yeah.
And I wouldn't even, the moment that these words would be out of somebody's mouth, I would be closed off because I'm like, I don't want to hear that again.
That's a good point. And then number 5, knowing what matters. And he said that he put this last, but actually it's really important. That's why he put it last, because it's the key, you know, like even if you accomplish, like this guy did a gazillion things, like having a really, really profitable business, having airplanes, having houses, having whatever.
Although he lost his wife, which is sad. Because that's what matters.
Yes, but now he's focusing on his kids, his friends, his family, and so. But he called everything else glitter. You know, don't lose perspective on what really matters. That's because when you have a good perspective on what really matters, you're more likely to fight through whatever you're afraid of for the things that really matter. And he used, you know, his friend getting an injury while he was swimming or whatever, and he had to like focus on, you know, getting back to his kids and his wife. But mainly when you're fighting through fear, you fight through a perspective on things that matter most to you. So that was really good for me.
And you get, like, once you learn to operate in these terms, you can embrace fear in a sense. And you're so far away from like people that they just pretend it doesn't exist.
Right.
You know, like you take fear on. That's what this book, I feel it's all about. Take it on. Take life on. Take fear on. Stare it. Look the situation for what it is, and overcome it. Yeah. Like be real. Be real with yourself and the situation.
For sure.
Was this the 5th tip?
Yep. But he leaves it for last because he wants, you know,
so that was
more important.
So what matters, right?
Yeah.
Like, okay. So 2 stories. One I'll hold it for last, and one I'll say it now. There is this fighter. Let me find his name. He's a very big deal. I am so sorry, I forgot his name. 1 second. He won Conor McGregor. You know who's Conor McGregor? He's a big deal in MMA, but he won this guy. So he's like the guy that Dustin Poirier. You guys know about this guy, Dustin Poirier. I bet most of these people know about it. So here is what he says, and that's included in the book too. That's why I bring this guy up. They ask him how he prepares for a race, and he has a great interview on Valuetainment. That's the channel, so go watch the whole thing. But here is a part that I really took a note of. He says, I take a blank piece of paper and tell me what you think of this. I write the date of the race, and then I make 1 circle around the race, and I write everything I can control. Training, sleep, eating, mindset. And outside of the circle, I write opponents training, media, dirt that they're going to throw on me, other people's opinion. It's like, all I have to do is at the best I can be at the inner circle, the things that I can control. Everything else is out of my control. And all I have to do is make sure I'm the best at what I can control. And this is so liberating to me because it's true. Like, you cannot control how hard the other person is going to train, but you can control how hard you're going to train. You cannot control how much he's going to sleep or whatever else is going on or what's going on that's out of your control. But the power is in what you can control.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
Yeah. So like that's empowering.
That's good.
Exactly. You like the story?
Yes.
All right.
It's actually very similar, I guess, because let's move on. But so he, at the end of the book, asks to identify. So like you were just saying, like about the circle and identifying, what he could control, what he cannot. But this person, the author, said identify what matters most in this, in his book. So I think you have to be intentional about fear because like anything, like if you're really intentional about fixing it, changing it, incorporating it, then the likelihood of it actually happening is high.
Yeah.
So just be really intentional. And he said to make a list of what matters most to you. It varies, what matters most to me might not be what matters that most to you.
Yeah.
So just being intentional. And I watched a podcast on why you should define your fears instead of your goals. Because when you're intentional on that, you know how to
overcome.
Yeah, and control it a little bit better, master it a little bit better. So
does this come into play?
Yes, go ahead, read it.
All right. Let me see if I can zoom in a little more. How cool is that?
Switch it to that screen you said.
Which screen?
Okay. Oh yeah, it's right there.
All right.
It looks great.
It says the man in the arena. That's from who is that? Theodore Roosevelt, right?
Yeah.
So it says, it is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives violently, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error and shortcoming. But who does actually strive to do the deeds? Who knows great enthusiasm, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat.
So good.
That is a really good one.
So good.
Let's come back, bring ourselves back here to... That was cool.
Yeah, that quote was in the book, and I've heard it before. I'm pretty sure you probably have too, but
not the whole thing, but that's a good... I mean, nobody remembers. Nobody remembers the people around the arena. Nobody remembers the people that they point out what you've done wrong. Nobody remembers. All they remember is Mike Tyson. All
Right.
they remember is Steve Jobs. All they remember is Elon Musk. All they remember is Henry Ford, the Wright brothers. Nobody remembers the person that sticks the finger out and points at you.
Right.
Albert Einstein, countless examples. Nobody remembers them. But the people that even if they get it wrong, they try for ambitious goals.
Yep.
People
Exactly.
take notice,
Exactly.
That's the gist of this thing, and it's a beautiful, inspiring. This is where your focus should be, to be the person in the arena. Forget about anything else that goes wrong, man. We live in this situation. It's just, it irks me. It irks me and bothers me beyond belief. How people on social media now, they will just, they have this tendency to hide whatever vulnerability they got, and all they want to focus on is how they can make themselves look better than the next person. But this is like a trapped situation, because there's always somebody with, like we said, a better car, bigger body, better body, this and that. So if your self-worth is based on how look you good, it's pointless,
Yeah. So moving on, because we have to wrap this up.
No way.
We don't want to
I'm
keep
having
you
so
forever.
much fun.
All right. So last
Subscribe.
but not least, the podcast. It was a TED Talk, and I don't know who it was, but I will put it in the description. And
change
it
the
was
picture?
yes. So let's move on. So this guy mentions the quote: "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." And this is why, again, going back to, talking out loud, what you're thinking and all that stuff, because usually half of the battle is really in your head, like we had already mentioned. And so this guy basically talked about really being deliberate about writing down your fears rather than your goals, because oftentimes, yes, you're going to have goals, but a lot of the things that's holding you back from those goals is fear. So why don't you
100%.
identify those? So he goes on and he says, make this list. He said, what if I, and then he said, I think his example was travel to London and do something, but it could be different from you. So define what it is. So I'll just do one real quick.
All right.
So define. So what if I spoke in front of a bunch of different people, like more than 100 people
Okay.
on stage? And what if I make myself look like a fool? And I am completely embarrassed. How would I prevent that? I will practice nearly nonstop, as much as I can. If that thing does end up happening, how will I repair it? I will learn from my mistakes. Wow. When you lay it out on the table like that, it doesn't seem that scary.
Exactly.
It's like, I will fix it. I will probably learn from it.
You put it into chunks.
Right. Like, and it probably do another one.
Well, I will do another one, but this is the gist of it, and the way to short circuit this is by learning by other people's mistakes in your position as well. So if you're a comedian and you go up and they boo you, let me do another example. Define, right? I am a stand-up comedian and I go up and the term is dying on stage. Like joke after joke, I lose the audience more and more. So they start booing me and I go out and I go cry to myself. How do I repair this? How do I become more funny?
Well, you skipped a step. How are you going to prevent that from happening?
All right, yeah. So I try to be funny.
Yes.
I will try to be funny.
Try to come prepared.
Funnier. Yeah, I will try to become more prepared and be funnier. And then I'll repair it by trying to do better jokes, But the thing is, if you have a list of other comedians and see what kind of realm they move in, not by copying them, you can become much more better because exponential knowledge is there.
Yep.
Like you can learn from others as well.
Right.
But the base of it, it's if you put it in these terms and you have it visualized in that way, you're so much better off than most people that they try to pretend it doesn't exist or
Right.
like thick chunk it.
Okay, and then next, ask yourself what might be the benefits of an attempt or partial success. So ask yourself what will happen, what's going to be the benefits of, your attempt to start breaking through that fear. And even if it's a partial success, what did you accomplish? Okay, and then next, just wrap it up. Yes.
Okay.
The cost of inaction, and this is a big one because, and he breaks it down into timelines, but honestly, what are you missing out on?
Oh yeah.
Because you're not breaking through, going on that roller coaster.
That's like an opportunity cost.
Like I did when I went on Superman with Alex and almost died. But I look back and I probably could have done it easier the second time, and we had a blast, and it meant the world to Alex that I was there with him. So
I love this. I
or
love roller coasters.
public speaking, or doing your whatever you want to do. Make an example.
Making a YouTube video.
Like, what's the cost though?
A huge one. The opportunity cost is huge. The cost of not taking action is tremendous.
Yeah, or switching that career, which I did.
It's tremendous. It's tremendous because of what Warren Buffett, one of the best investors in the US, calls the snowball effect. The snowball has to start from a tiny little flake, and then has to keep rolling. But if you don't add up a tiny little bit of snow every time it rolls,
And that's why the 6 months.
yeah, 1 year. That's the snowball effect right here. Yeah, like in 3 years worth of time, 10 years worth of time, you're unstoppable because you built all this momentum and knowledge and self-confidence that you can overcome whatever comes your way. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
And take the opposite of that. It's a really hurtful,
of not taking action.
Thing.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's the point of this one. So go check out that podcast because that TED Talk. It's not a podcast. It was really good.
And like, as far as this goes, real quick, it becomes in your brain, like, if you, like, an example with my YouTube videos, okay? A little bit more personal. If you haven't done it in a week, and then a second week passes, and then you haven't done it in 2 weeks, then the farther away you don't take action, the harder it becomes to kick the ball running again, So, like, it becomes a mental hurdle as well, that we try to overcome now,
Yes. So go deal with your fear. It's not going to go away. But
no, and don't pretend it doesn't exist.
Know how to, like this guy said, master it, deal with it, live with it, make it your ally. You will be rocking. You'll be golden. That's all I have to say for today.
I want to close with this. Think of Rosa Parks, I bet you she was scared and she like stood up and she said, no, I'm not going to the back of the bus. Think of people as big as this, that they were scared and they still did it anyway, and how they remain in history. Get inspired by that. Said, no, I'm not going to the back of the bus. They stood up for themselves, what they believed for. And there is this saying that says, and listen to this, it says, a coward dies 1,000 times, a hero only dies once. If you are a coward and you are afraid of the world, you die in your head 1 billion times. What if this happens? What if that happens? Scenarios that they might never happen, and you die every day. But a hero only dies once, He takes action again and again, and his death, it's praised. So that's why some people go down in history as heroes, and some people go down in history as cowards.
Or even if you don't, be a hero of your own life.
Exactly. And that's what it's all about.
To your own kids, to your own family.
Yeah, that's
okay.
The substance. We love you guys. That was a good one.
Yep. 15 minutes in though, so we're gonna let you go to your work or whatever.
That's okay. You guys have a long commute at work. Okay. Anyway, here's the previous video right here. The previous video made about buying a house. Okay, go watch it. We love you.
Love you.
We'll see you in the next one.